Grief does not arrive as a single crashing wave. It comes in pulses striking when you least expect it. When the kettle whistles, when the house creaks, when you wake up and momentarily forget that the person you love will never again breathe beside you. After Ethan died, the world didn't end. It simply continued without him, which somehow felt worse. Every ordinary thing became a reminder that he was gone and I was still here. In those hollow days, Rowan was the only thing that kept the air moving in my lungs. He wasn't what most people would call a remarkable dog. A little gangly, with legs too long for his body and a tail that wagged with the chaotic enthusiasm of a creature who believed the sun rose just for him. But to me he was perfect, because Ethan had chosen him, because he represented intention, love, and the future Ethan had hoped I would still have even after he was gone. I still remember the day Ethan brought Rowan home. He'd been sick then, thinner, paler, but his smile had been bright when he opened the door and a clumsy brown dog tumbled inside. "Meet Rowan," he had said, his voice soft but proud. "As well, he's a mess, but he's ours." I laughed, a sound I hadn't made in days. "We don't need a dog," I told him. "No," he answered gently, "but you need something that still chooses you every day, even when I can't." I didn't understand the weight of that sentence until much later. Rowan took to me instantly. He followed me from room to room, slept beside the bed, nudged my hand whenever I cried. In the weeks after the funeral, he refused to leave my side. Even when I moved like a ghost through the house, his presence grounded me in the smallest, quietest ways. Which is why the betrayal cut so deep. The day Celia came, I had been gone only an hour, just long enough to buy groceries and pick up a new bag of dog food. I remember humming under my breath in the car, thinking maybe, just maybe, grief was loosening its grip. But when I pulled into the driveway, Celia's car sat parked crookedly, like an impatient visitor intruding on a moment that wasn't hers. My stomach sank. Celia never visited without a motive. Inside, she sat at my kitchen table as if she'd lived there for years, arms crossed, expression tight with that superior pity she had mastered. "Celia," I said slowly, "what are you doing here?" She didn't look apologetic, or troubled, or even remotely hesitant. Instead, she said it in a tone so casual it felt obscene. "I took care of that dog problem." Time froze. I blinked once. Twice. What do you mean? "Rowan," she repeated, as if discussing an errand she'd run for me. "I had him put down." The world didn't tilt. It shattered. My throat closed. My vision narrowed. For a moment I couldn't hear anything but the roaring pulse in my ears. "Yumahat." The word tore out of me, raw and disbelieving. Celia sighed, as if I were being dramatic. "He was too big, too unpredictable. You're extremely vulnerable right now, Mara." I did what was best. "You'll see that eventually." "He was Ethan's," I whispered. "He was mine." "How could you?" Without asking. "How could you think?" "I'm the only one who cares enough to step in," she snapped. "Everyone else enables your grief. I'm trying to protect you. Protect me. By killing the only living connection I had left." I don't remember the rest of the conversation. Just flashes her cold voice, my tingling hands, the bags of groceries scattered across the floor like casualties. When she finally left, I sank to the ground, curled around Rowan's empty collar that still sat on the hook by the door, because Celia hadn't even taken it with her. The house felt colder, darker, crueler. That night, I pressed my forehead to the floor and sobbed so hard my body cramped. Rowan had been the last gift Ethan gave me, and now he too was gone, or so I believed. But grief is not the only thing that arrives in unexpected waves. 3 days later, Hope did too, digging in my backyard. For 3 days after Celia's admission, I drifted through the house like a sleepwalker. Every room echoed with Rowan's absence, the unused dog bed, the untouched water bowl, the quiet space beside my bed where his breathing should have been. I kept expecting to hear the thump of his tail against the floorboards or the soft click of his nails on the tile. Each time silence answered me, grief hollowed a little deeper. On the third evening, as dusk painted the yard in muted purples, I stood at the kitchen sink rinsing a coffee mug I hadn't actually used. My thoughts blurred, looping between disbelief and numbness. I didn't notice movement at first, just a flicker of something in the corner of my vision. Then a shape, a brown shape, darted past the window. My breath stilled. No, I must have imagined it. But the shape came back, and this time it was unmistakable. Rowan alive, my heart lurched violently in my chest. The mug slipped from my hands and clattered into the sink. I pressed both palms to the counter, afraid to look again and terrified that if I blinked, he'd vanish like a hallucination born of grief. But he didn't. He was right there in the backyard, muddy, frantic, digging with desperate, jerking motions. I didn't even grab shoes. I bolted out the back door, feet slapping the cold grass. "Rowan!" I cried, voice cracking. He froze mid-dig, lifted his head, and then everything happened at once. His tail whipping, his ears flattening, his entire body launching toward me with joyful disbelief. He collided with my legs and let out a series of barks so frantic they sounded like sobs. I fell to my knees and wrapped my arms around him. My tears soaked into his fur while Rowan's muzzle pressed into my shoulder, his body trembling with excitement or fear. I couldn't tell which. "You're alive," I whispered over and over, as though saying it might make it real. "You're alive." When he finally settled, he pulled away, turning back toward the corner of the yard. He barked once sharply, then resumed digging. I wiped my eyes, confusion threading through the relief. "What is it? What are you? Don't look at me." He only dug harder. I recognized the spot, then, the newly built garden bed, the one Celia had insisted on making for me. She'd shown up with gloves and tools, declaring it a project to help me heal. I'd been too exhausted to argue, too broken to question why she was so insistent about that particular patch of the yard. Why there? Why so suddenly? A chill crawled up my spine. I moved beside Rowan and reached into the dirt with him. My hands shook as I pushed soil aside. Something hard clinked beneath my fingertips. Rowan stepped back, panting, his eyes fixed on the spot. I uncovered a metal box, small, rectangular, heavy with dirt compacted around its edges. My pulse hammered. The box wasn't rusted. It hadn't been buried long. Someone, very recently, had placed it there. I lifted it carefully, brushing dirt away. The lid was sealed tight. Rowan whined anxiously and nudged my hand, urging me to open it. My fingers trembled so badly I struggled with the latch. When it finally snapped open, the scent of cold metal and damp soil drifted out. Inside lay a stack of documents, financial papers, email printouts with highlighted phrases, bank statements I'd never seen, and receipts, dozens, bearing my name in handwriting that wasn't mine. On top of everything sat a small USB drive. My throat closed when I saw the handwriting on it, Ethan's handwriting. "For Mara. Trust Rowan." Rowan nudged the USB, then looked at me, eyes wide and pleading as if he understood everything. My stomach twisted with a sick knowing. Celia hadn't built me a garden. She had buried something. Something she didn't want me to find. And Rowan, the dog she tried to destroy, was the one who unearthed it. I hugged the box to my chest as Rowan pressed against my side protectively. "What did she do?" I whispered to the night air. But Rowan already knew. He had dug out more than soil. He had dug out the beginning of a truth that would overturn everything I thought I knew about my husband's final days, and the person who claimed to be helping me. Inside the house, I set the metal box on the kitchen table with shaking hands. Rowan paced beside me, his nails clicking anxiously against the hardwood. He wasn't restless. He was guarding. He kept his body angled toward the back door, listening for something I couldn't hear. As if he knew the discovery was only the beginning. I plugged the USB drive into Ethan's old laptop. It took a moment for the screen to flicker awake, but when it did, a folder appeared instantly. Audiologies, FOR. My thumb hovered over the trackpad. For a heartbeat, I hesitated. I wasn't sure I could hear Ethan's voice without falling apart. But I needed answers more than I needed comfort. I opened the first file. Static crackled, and then his voice filled the kitchen. "Hey love, if you're hearing this, I probably didn't make it." My breath left me in a single, broken gasp. Rowan pressed his head against my knee. Ethan's voice was weak, but calm, intentional. "I'm recording because there are things I didn't get a chance to tell you. Things I should have told you earlier, but I didn't want to worry you while I was sick." I gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. "It's about Celia." At her name, something inside me tightened. She's been trying to control things, my accounts, my medical choices, even the will. She keeps saying she knows what's best for me, that you're too emotional to deal with all of it. The words hit me like an open-handed slap. Too emotion fragile, too weak. Celia's favorite accusations. Ethan coughed a wet, painful sound. "She's been pressuring me to change beneficiaries. She says you won't survive on your own, that you'll fall apart." I didn't. I whispered fiercely at the screen. I didn't fall apart. I didn't believe her. Ethan continued softly. "I know your strength better than she ever will. But she'd been forging things, Mara. She forged your signature once. Tried to take a loan in your name. I stopped it before the bank processed anything, but she didn't react well. I think she blames you for that." My stomach twisted. "She's unpredictable and angry. I don't want her to get near you if anything happens to me." He paused to catch his breath. That's why I adopted Rowan." I looked down at Rowan. He lifted his eyes toward the laptop screen, as if he recognized the voice. "He's trained," Ethan said. Not in an obvious way, but enough to find things by scent. Things that belong to me. Things I've touched. If something happens, I need you to trust him. He'll lead you to what you need to know. So Rowan wasn't just a comfort animal. He was a guide. A messenger Ethan had carefully, quietly prepared. I swallowed hard and clicked the second audio file. Celia won't stop, Ethan said, voice weaker now. She found something I recorded earlier. She demanded to know what I was hiding. I told her it was just therapy journals, but she didn't believe me. The hair on the back of my neck prickled. If she ever visits you after I'm gone, be careful, Rowan growled, low, soft, almost instinctive. The third recording was short, barely 30 seconds. If Rowan found this, it means she tried to bury it, or bury something. He won't let it stay hidden. Trust him, love. Trust him the way I trusted you. My eyes blurred with tears. When the audio ended, the silence in the kitchen was deafening. Rowan barked once, sharp and urgent. As if telling me the time for morning had passed. As if telling me Ethan had left a trail, and Rowan had brought me to the very start of it. I wiped my face and picked up the metal box again. This time, I looked closely at the documents inside. Bank statements with withdrawals I never authorized, emails from Celia's address demanding access, legal forms with my forged signature. A cold, dark thread connected everything. Celia hadn't just interfered. She had plotted, maybe for months, maybe longer. And Rowan was never supposed to live long enough to reveal it. A sudden thought struck me like lightning. If she had forged my signature once, what stopped her from doing it again? I grabbed my keys. Come on, I said to Rowan. He didn't hesitate. He ran to the door, tail stiff ready. We drove straight to the animal clinic. The moment I mentioned Celia's name, the vet tech, a young man named Harris, shifted uncomfortably. Inside a small consultation room, he confessed the truth. Yes, she brought Rowan in, he said. Demanded we euthanize him. She said you authorized it, but something felt off. She was intense, and the paperwork didn't look right. So I didn't do it. I transferred him to a rescue group instead. I'm sorry. I didn't know how to contact you. I exhaled shakily. You saved him. Harris nodded, guilt and relief warring on his face. Honestly, she scared me. She scared me now too, but not in the way she used to. Fear had turned into clarity, and clarity was sharper than anger. When I returned home, Celia was waiting on my porch. She smiled, but her eyes burned with frantic calculation. Mara, she said sweetly, we need to talk. Rowan stepped in front of me, teeth bared. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized something important. She wasn't in control anymore. She was afraid, and Ethan's truth had only begun to surface. The next morning felt different, thick with purpose, humming with attention just beneath the surface. I wasn't the broken widow Celia expected anymore. I wasn't confused or malleable. I wasn't even afraid. I was ready. Rowan sensed the shift in me. He stayed close, circling me with guarded energy as though preparing for something he understood on an instinctive level. When I gathered the metal box and documents, he followed me room to room, alert, protective, determined. The first person I contacted was Ethan's estate attorney, Mr. Farwell. He had been fond of Ethan, almost paternal toward him, and when I told him I needed an emergency meeting, he didn't hesitate. At his office, I placed everything on the desk, Ethan's audio files, the forged signatures, the suspicious transfers, the USB drive, and the receipts bearing handwriting I could swear Celia had learned to imitate in childhood. Farwell's face changed gradually as he examined the evidence, concerned to disturbed to outright furious. This is fraud, he said finally, voice low and controlled, and criminal forgery. She attempted to manipulate a vulnerable patient's estate. Good God, Mara, Ethan was right to worry. I felt something inside me tighten, but not from grief, from clarity. It gets worse, I said, telling him about Celia's attempt to euthanize Rowan without my consent. Farwell stood up. I'll contact the authorities today. She's interfered with Ethan's estate, and she may have breached medical decisions too. We'll file for a full injunction and request charges. I left his office feeling lighter, as if each step I took chipped away at the weight Celia had placed on my shoulders. Rowan trotted proudly beside me, head held high, his tail sweeping in confident arcs. That afternoon, the investigators came. Rowan barked when the marked cars pulled into the driveway. I stood on the porch with him at my side as two officers approached. Are you Mara Hall? Yes? We're here regarding a case of alleged fraud and unlawful signature forgery. We were told by your attorney that you have relevant evidence. Yes, I said, gesturing them inside. And someone you need to keep away from my property. The officers nodded. They had already received Farwell's report. It took 2 hours to walk them through everything. Where the box was found, how Celia had tried to bury it, Ethan's audio recordings, the timeline of transfers she'd attempted to authorize, and Rowan's near death at the clinic. The officers listened carefully, their expressions growing darker with every detail. "Mrs. Hall," one said gently, "you've been carrying this alone for too long." I swallowed hard. "Not alone," I whispered, resting a hand on Rowan's head. "Not entirely." By sunset, they informed me that Celia was being brought in for questioning. As if summoned by the mere mention of her name, my phone buzzed with her number. I didn't answer. The officers advised me not to. The next day she was arrested. I wasn't present. But I heard from Farwell how she screamed when the handcuffs were brought out. How she insisted I was mentally unfit. That Ethan had wanted her to manage everything. That Rowan was demon dog who ruined everything. No one believed her. Not anymore. She faced charges of fraud, attempted estate manipulation, unlawful forgery, and attempted animal cruelty. She didn't get bail. For the first time since Ethan died, I slept without waking in a panic. But the sweetest moment came several days later when the estate was officially settled. Farwell sat across from me with a gentle smile. "Ethan left everything to you," he said. "As he always intended. It was never in question. Not legally, not morally." I cried then quietly, letting grief and relief blend into something softer. Rowan pressed his forehead to mine, as if sharing the moment with me. Later that evening, when the house was finally still, I walked out to the corner of the yard. The place where the metal box had been buried. The soil was uneven, churned by Rowan's frantic digging and my own trembling hands. It looked raw, disturbed, but no longer menacing. I knelt and began planting lilies, Ethan's favorite. Rowan lay beside me, paws muddy again, watching every movement as if protecting a sacred ritual. Each bulb I placed felt symbolic, like planting small seeds of truth where lies had once hidden. Where Celia had tried to bury her treachery, I would now grow beauty. When the last flower was planted, I sat back and pulled out Ethan's final letter. "If Rowan led you here, it means the truth needed you, and I knew you would find the strength to face it. I love you beyond life, Mara. Please keep living. For me, for you, for the world that still needs your light." My tears dripped onto the paper, forming transparent circles on the ink. But this time they weren't from heartbreak, they were from healing. I folded the letter carefully and looked at Rowan. "We're going to be okay," I whispered. He wagged his tail, slow and steady, as if agreeing. The sun dipped low behind us, turning the lilies into soft silhouettes. In that glow, the garden no longer felt like a burial ground. It felt like a beginning, a place where truth had risen, where love had outlasted betrayal, where Ethan still guided me through the companion he'd left behind. Rowan rested his head on my lap, warm and alive. And for the first time in months, I felt alive too.